What if someone spent 4 years secretly funding their family's lifestyle, only to discover they were being mocked behind their back? This is Tammy's story, and her revenge was ice cold. Every Sunday, Tammy walked into that house smelling of lemon cleaner, carrying cake from Oak Hill Bakery. She was invisible. Vanessa would arrive late, hair styled, phone buzzing with important real estate calls. All eyes turned to Ness. "You'll never be as good as your sister, Tammy," her father would say. The room erupted in laughter. "Vanessa is our pride and joy," Aunt Carol added. Tammy's grip tightened on the knife. That night, staring at her mother's text about bringing napkins, Tammy opened her banking app and started screenshotting transactions. 4 years of evidence began piling up. The flashbacks hit hard. Age 21, $120 for electricity, monthly gas money, grocery runs, $300 monthly utilities, installing thermostats because Dad's back hurt. Meanwhile, Ness posted cocktail photos online. During another family dinner, Tammy set down her fork. "Then tell her to pay all the bills herself, because I'm not sending another dime." Her mother gasped. "Are you insane?" Ness smirked, trying to get attention again. Tammy looked directly at her sister. "You'll have all the attention you want soon, Ness." 1 week later, the emergency meeting. Her father began his speech about a new contribution plan. Tammy placed a green binder on the table. "Before new plans, we need to discuss the past 4 years." The evidence was undeniable. $29,000 in secret support while being treated like the family failure. "I'm your daughter, not your bank," Tammy declared. "The silent withdrawals end now." Her father slammed the table. "You're being disrespectful." Tammy didn't flinch. "Disrespectful is cashing my checks while rewriting my life story." The aftermath was swift. When her parents defaulted on loans, they explicitly requested we stop providing oxygen and let nature take its course. The words hung between us like a death sentence that had already been passed. I turned to look out the window at the Chicago skyline, the Willis Tower piercing the gray October sky. 20 years of trying to earn their love. 20 years of being the perfect daughter. And it all came down to this. They wanted me dead. "They really said that?" I whispered, though I remembered every word. David pulled out a small notebook. I documented everything. Your father said, and I quote, "She's been a drain on this family for 30 years. Stop wasting taxpayer money on someone who will never amount to anything." Your mother added that your death would be a blessing that would free them from the shame of having such a failure for a daughter. Tears should have come, but I felt oddly empty. Perhaps you can only be betrayed so many times before your heart builds immunity. My younger sister Sarah had warned me they were saying things behind my back, but I'd assumed it was her usual jealousy talking. Sarah, the golden child who'd married a senator's son and produced 2 perfect grandchildren, while I'd divorced a gambling addict and struggled as a single mother. "Mrs. Morrison," David continued, his voice gentler now. "I've been a paramedic for 20 years. I've seen a lot of terrible things, but I've never seen parents actively try to prevent their child from receiving emergency care. If you need me to testify about what happened, I will. Testify. The word sparked something in the hollow space where my heart used to be. They wanted me gone? They wanted to be free of their embarrassment of a daughter? Fine. But I wouldn't go quietly into that good night. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one they'd never forget. The door burst open, and my children ran in, followed by my friend Lisa, who'd been watching them. Emily threw herself onto the bed, sobbing into my hospital gown, while David climbed up more carefully, mindful of the IV lines. Mommy, The day after we left, Marcus sent me a picture of my EpiPen, along with a text claiming it had been in my nightstand the whole time. I know for a fact that's impossible, because I tore that room apart looking for it. He definitely took it and hid it from me. Then he started trying to convince me to come back home. You scared yourself stupid watching too many true crime shows, he texted. Something still didn't feel right, so I told him to leave both my money and EpiPen in our apartment mailbox if he really wanted to help. We went back and forth through messages, with him continuing to deny having my money. Finally, his true nature emerged completely. If we broke up, you and Zola are no longer allowed in my apartment and will be treated like trespassers, he texted, followed by a photo of target practice sheets showing bullet holes clustered around the center of paper silhouettes. I took screenshots of the threatening messages and went to the police about the stolen money, but they told me it was a civil issue they couldn't help with. I was upset, but still needed to get our remaining belongings, so I requested a police escort. Yesterday, an officer finally accompanied me to the apartment along with our landlord. Marcus had destroyed everything belonging to Zola. Her clothes were cut up, her books were torn apart, and he'd ruined the laptop charger I need for work. Worse, he'd destroyed Zola's medical supplies and backup medications. There was no EpiPen anywhere to be found. Our landlord was so disturbed by what he saw that he agreed to let me break the lease early without paying termination fees, which is helpful since I have no money left anyway. The motel is expensive, and I don't want to surrender Echo to a shelter. All the shelters remain full, and this whole situation is terrifying. I'm sorry this is such a depressing update, but people wanted to know what happened next. 2 days later, I was encouraged to return to the police station with more evidence. On Saturday, I printed out all the threatening text messages, including those target practice photos. I explained in detail about all the accidents that proved he'd been trying to hurt me systematically. I even had our landlord write a statement saying he believed our lives were in danger after seeing the destroyed apartment. The police told me they had already spoken with Marcus. Your relationship with your parents will be destroyed. I looked at my children, still sleeping beside me, their faces puffy from crying. They tried to let me die in an ambulance while my children are young enough to be molded into their image. The relationship is already destroyed. Now it's about protecting Emily and David, and making sure my parents never have the power to hurt us again. Over the next 2 weeks, as I recovered in the hospital, Ethan and I built our case. David the paramedic provided a detailed written statement and agreed to testify. The second paramedic in the ambulance corroborated everything. The security guards who'd escorted my parents from the hospital wrote incident reports. Even some nurses who'd overheard my parents in the waiting room came forward with their accounts. But the real gold mine came from an unexpected source. Sarah, my younger sister, showed up on a Tuesday afternoon when the children were at school. She looked perfect as always. Blonde hair styled in waves, wearing a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But her face was troubled. They went too far this time, she said without preamble. I've watched them tear you down for years, and I said nothing because because I benefited from being the good daughter. But trying to let you die? Telling your children you're as good as dead? That's not just cruel, Nadia. That's evil. She reached into her designer purse and pulled out a flash drive. I've been recording them. Not intentionally at first, but Dad gave me a phone that automatically records calls for his business purposes. I have dozens of conversations where they discuss you. How to undermine you with the children. How to make you look unstable to the family. How they were considering seeking custody of Emily and David. I stared at the flash drive like it was a live grenade. You're giving this to me? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm not brave like you, Nadia. I've never been brave. I took the easy path, married who they wanted, lived how they wanted. But I have daughters too, and someday they might dare to be different. What happens to them? Your mother is being honored for her years of service to sick children. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. Eleanor Sterling, savior of sick children, who tried to murder her own daughter by denying her medical care. I want to destroy them, I said quietly. Not physically, but everything they've built, their reputation, their standing, their precious image. I want it all to burn. Then we need to be strategic, Ethan replied. The gala is November 15th at the Palmer House Hilton. 500 of Chicago's elite will be there. If we're going to expose them, that's our stage. The plan came together like a symphony of revenge. We filed charges for interference with emergency medical care, but asked the prosecutor to delay any arrests until after the gala. We prepared a civil lawsuit for emotional distress and attempted custodial interference. But the real weapon was the court of public opinion. I was discharged from the hospital 2 weeks before the gala. My parents, unaware of what was coming, had the audacity to call and inform me I wasn't welcome at the event. It would be awkward, my mother said over the phone, her voice dripping with fake concern. After your recent episode, people might ask questions. We think it's best if you sit this one out. Of course, Mother, I replied sweetly. I wouldn't want to embarrass you. If only she knew. The night of the gala arrived with the first snow of the season, delicate flakes drifting past the windows of the Palmer House. I stood outside with Ethan, Emily, and David, all of us dressed impeccably. I'd spent the last of my savings on our outfits, because image mattered to my parents more than anything, and I wanted to look perfect when I destroyed theirs. Lisa had agreed to watch the children after my speech, knowing it might get ugly. But I needed them there for the beginning. I needed Chicago's elite to see the grandchildren Richard and Eleanor Sterling were willing to orphan. We entered through the main doors, our invitation legitimate thanks to Sarah, who'd quietly added us to the guest list. The ballroom was spectacular, draped in silver and white, with massive floral arrangements that probably cost all he'd needed was Zola's full name and grade to get a message to her. My daughter told me later that she knew I hadn't gotten a new car, because she could tell I was broke. She thought she was going to have to go with him. 3 weeks later, I can finally say that Zola, Echo, and I are safe, and will continue to be. Marcus can no longer hurt us, and I can start rebuilding our lives without fear. I'm not okay yet, but we're alive and we're free. I spent the last 4 months literally running for our lives. I've had people ask me why I'm not stable yet, which caught me off guard. I left my home with basically nothing. Went to a hotel where he found us, then another hotel where he found us again. I was asked to leave a safe house because Marcus was too dangerous. We slept in my car. went to my mom's out of state, came back because domestic violence resources were here, and he followed us back from Zola's school. After he broke my nose and shattered my orbital bone, giving me a concussion, I had to leave that apartment too. More hotels, more nights in the car, finally ending up back at my mom's place again. So much money wasted, so much fear. But we survived. The worst part came when my mom took her own life. I found her in her bedroom after being dead for 2 days. I'd been working all weekend and didn't know. The scene was horrific. Blood everywhere. And I thought at first that Marcus had found us and killed her. When I saw her note, I realized the truth was different, but equally devastating. We had to sleep in the car again because I couldn't afford crime scene cleanup. Losing my mom on top of everything else nearly broke me completely. In the past 2 years, I've lost my sister, my grandmother, my aunt, had a miscarriage, lost Echo, and now my mom. I felt like I was missing out on something. Like everyone I loved was together somewhere without me. But Zola and I kept going. We had to. The vet accidentally gave Marcus our location months later when Echo got sick, and they called the emergency contact number I'd forgot. Some people in his life still don't believe he belongs in prison and think I ruined his life. But I know the truth. I am not the villain in this story. I'm the mother who saved her daughter from a predator who had been living in our home, planning and waiting for the right moment to strike. The months following Marcus's sentencing were a blur of paperwork, therapy sessions, and sleepless nights. Even though he was locked away, I found myself jumping at every unexpected sound, checking locks obsessively, and scanning crowds for his face. Zola had nightmares that left her crying and clinging to me in the middle of the night. "Is he really gone, Mom?" she would ask, her voice small and frightened. "Yes, baby. He can't hurt us anymore," I'd whisper, stroking her hair while my own heart raced with residual fear. The restitution money helped us get back on our feet, but the emotional recovery was much harder than the financial one. I enrolled us both in trauma counseling, though finding therapists who specialized in domestic violence and child victims was challenging in our area. Zola's therapist was particularly concerned about the psychological impact of Marcus's grooming behaviors that came to light during the trial. Children who experience this kind of targeted attention from predators often struggle with trust and boundaries, Dr. Martinez explained to me during one of our family sessions. Zola is incredibly brave for testifying, but we need to watch for signs of anxiety, depression, or regression. She was right. Zola started having panic attacks at school whenever men with similar builds to Marcus walked by her classroom. She refused to use public restrooms alone and insisted on sleeping in my room for months. Some nights, I'd find her standing guard by our front door, checking to make sure it was locked. The trial had revealed disturbing details about Marcus's behavior that I'd missed completely. His internet search history showed he'd been researching my work schedule, Zola's school schedule, and even looking up information about child development and grooming techniques. The prosecution's case included testimony from his coworkers, who recalled inappropriate comments he'd made about Zola over the "I need to be patient, but it's getting harder to wait." During the sentencing hearing, I was allowed to give a victim impact statement. I'd practiced it dozens of times, but standing there in that courtroom with Marcus just feet away, the words caught in my throat. "Your Honor, I began, my voice shaking. This man didn't just steal money from us or break my bones. He stole our sense of safety, our ability to trust, and nearly 2 years of our lives. But worse than what he did to me was what he planned to do to my daughter. I looked directly at Marcus as I continued. You made our home into a hunting ground. You turned everyday activities into opportunities to study and manipulate a child. You weaponized our need for shelter and stability against us. The fact that you hid your true intentions behind the mask of a loving partner makes your crimes even more heinous. Marcus never looked up from the table during my statement. His lawyer had advised him not to make eye contact with victims, but his complete lack of reaction felt like one final insult. Even facing 12 years in prison, he showed no remorse, no acknowledgement of the trauma he'd caused. The judge's words during sentencing brought some closure. Mr. Williams, your actions represent a calculated and prolonged campaign of psychological terrorism against a vulnerable family. The evidence shows clear predatory behavior toward a minor child, combined with systematic abuse of the victim's mother. The court finds your conduct to be among the most disturbing examples of domestic violence and child endangerment I've encountered in my career. After the trial, Zola's testimony became a source of strength for other young victims in our area. The prosecutor's office asked if she'd be willing to participate in educational programs for law enforcement about recognizing signs of child predators. She agreed, saying she wanted to help other kids who might be in danger. Maybe if adults know what to look for, they can protect other families, she told me, with a maturity that broke my heart. Rebuilding our lives meant starting completely over. I found a new job, working remotely for a nonprofit organization that provided She joined the drama club and discovered a talent for writing that surprised her teachers. I want to write stories about brave girls who saved themselves, she told me one evening while working on a creative writing assignment. That sounds perfect, I replied, thinking about how accurately that described both of us. Echo's death, during our time in hiding, had been devastating. But we eventually adopted 2 kittens from the animal shelter. Zola named them Hope and Justice, saying they represented what we'd gained by surviving. They became emotional support animals in their own right, providing comfort during difficult nights and giving us something positive to focus on. The financial restitution from Marcus helped us get back on our feet, but the real healing came from therapy, support groups, and slowly rebuilding our confidence. I joined a survivor support group where I met other women who'd endured similar experiences. Hearing their stories made me realize how common psychological abuse and child predation really are, and how often the warning signs are dismissed or minimized. The scariest part is how normal they seem, shared Maria during one group session. My ex-husband's friends still think I'm crazy for leaving him. They have no idea what he was really like behind closed doors. Learning about trauma bonding, gaslighting, and predatory grooming helped me understand why I'd missed so many red flags. Marcus had been skilled at making his concerning behaviors seem normal or even caring. His insistence on controlling our finances was framed as wanting to help. His interest in Zola's activities was presented as being a devoted stepfather figure. Predators are experts at exploiting our best instincts, my therapist explained. He used your love for your daughter and your desire for a stable family against you. That's not your fault. It's evidence of how calculated his manipulation was. 18 months after Marcus's sentencing, I received a letter from him in prison. The return address made my hands shake as I debated whether to open it. After consulting with my therapist and the victim advocate from the prosecutor's office, I decided to read it with support present. The letter was exactly what I expected. A mix of fake remorse, subtle threats, and attempt. Abusers rarely accept responsibility for their actions, she explained. The fact that he's still trying to manipulate you, even from prison, shows he hasn't changed at all. Today, 3 years after our escape, Zola is thriving in high school. She's on the debate team, volunteers at the animal shelter, and has dreams of becoming a social worker to help other families in crisis. She still sees her therapist monthly, but the panic attacks have become rare and manageable. I'm proud of us for getting out, she told me recently. We saved ourselves, and now we can help other people save themselves too. We maintain strict security protocols and will continue to do so until Marcus's release date in 9 years. But we're no longer living in fear. We're living with purpose, strength, and the knowledge that we survived something that destroys many families. The system failed us in many ways during our crisis, but it ultimately delivered justice. More importantly, we learned that our own strength and determination were enough to save ourselves when no one else could. That's a lesson worth remembering, and worth sharing with other families who might be trapped in similar situations. We're rebuilding now, slowly but surely. Some days are harder than others, but we're together, we're safe, and we're free. That's enough for now. And it's everything we fought so hard to achieve.